Data binding is a unit that we started earlier. Just a small recap because we are going to see the practical side from this technology today. Just a small briefing, theoretical. The data binding is the context via which, just to remind you, it helps us to retrieve data from the data source into a control that the .NET is providing us, and we put as developers. We put at the front end API the ASPX pages. We have methodologies, we have types, we have properties also. Just we obey to the rules, and we'd be at the safe side, and the display would be run perfectly. So as per very brief review, we saw that there are properties, let's say aspects that we have to obey to, and each single binding would refer to two concepts, which are the data source, property to set, and the data bind method to call in order to accomplish the context of the populating the control from a data source or using a data source. Controls examples, we saw the list that they are actually examples of controls in question to go behind the different types of binding. We mean by the different types of binding actually the single and the repeated value binding. I'll come back. The single and the repeated value binding. Either we are going to retrieve a single value and display it, or we are going to bring a bulk of data, table-like, to D or whatever, and display it also. So repeated and single binding. So we said the examples of the controls, places where the bind happens. Here, this is actually a very important thing when we talk about the technical aspect of the binding. So the place where, whether the program, whether the page, remember that we need an event handler. Actually, the place where we are going to fill up the data. So specifically, manually, we can specify an event handler, button click or link click or hyperlink or something like that. This is actually a manual event. Otherwise, the very famous two other let's say triggers, the page load and the page pre-render. For the context of the page load, here actually we are going to come to the binding before loading the control itself. Loading it from where? From the back end, let's say from the server to the local browser cache. That time frame of the life cycle of the project life cycle, it is the page load, and here only we might do the binding. Or another place, one of them here actually this is one solution. Or another place where the event is to be set exactly after the load and in prior to the context of rendering the control to the end user. Remember that a control is an ASPX component. It's a .NET component, and we cannot display to an end user. It has to be rendered as an HTML in order to be previewed using the browser. So actually, if you remember very well, unit number 1, the life cycle of a page. So we need to render the thing in order to be displayed to an end user. So this is the place when we can also accomplish a binding. So in context of time frame, the page load is the first. The page pre-render is second. And after we see the rendered thing as an HTML, we can set the bin in here or here. Depends on the context, depends on the scenario, depends on the project. Great. No more, no less. The bin is just bringing a data source into actually a display unit, display control, let's say, whatever. Those are examples of controls. Yes. Every and each single control, in order to be actually populated, has to provide two fields mainly. They are not unique, but they are very famous, and they have to be actually set. The text field, this is what the user sees, the end user sees, and this is a hidden value. Actually, this is a hidden, let's say, the hidden value, yes, the data value field, and this is to be pointed by the system, and it is to be actually pointed by the developer in future times. So this is what the user sees, the text field, what to display, and this is what the system sees to link the property to a specific data source. To make you understand exactly what are those two things, the text field and the data value field, see here, actually, this is just one control. One control, this one. It's a list box. But how many values we have? We have 6 values. Okay, if I'm going to select this number 5, for example. Okay, how the system will recognize that I choose the number 5, the 5th value from this same control? Because of something hidden in background is the value. So there is an index. There is an index that the computer counts to recognize the specific value. Regardless, good. Let's keep going on. Not only the text field and the data value field as properties for defining the binned context, but they're very famous because those are actually the 2 pillars to let the binding happen. So using the text field and the data value field, we may finish a binding. We do not need, for example, the ID or the formatting, something like that. So we may need them for a specific task. Absolutely, it's not we don't need them. No. But we refer them for specific purposes. But based on and standing on the text field, the data text field, and the data value field, we may accomplish it. Example we saw, or we come to another example just in a while. The types of the either we are going to talk about single value binned or repeated value binned, and this actually means that we are going to display a single value by itself. Just simply we're going to just we're going to display just one single value. For example, I give the name of a product in a specific area of the page, or the price of a product, or the time, or whatever, something, one unique value, single. This is the context of the single. And for the repeated value, actually, it's a context via which we are having to go behind a structure. It's not a one value, but we are going to bring a bulk of data that we have to, let's say, when I said actually it's an architecture, it's a control that we have to populate it. The grid, it's a context of a table, something like that. We have to retrieve something similar in order to fill it. If I bring just one single value, I will not be able to put it into a grid. unless I have to put it one by one. I have to populate the fields inside the grid one by one using the single value, which is actually a headache, and it's not the way how we do. So we refer to the repeated value if you are willing to display many values at a time, like when we deal with the list box controls or the checkbox controls, something like that. So, sorry, the data source is the library that we refer to in order to accomplish the work with the binden working with the repeated value type. Examples. Good. Okay. This binden actually it starts with setting up the control itself to receive the value. The control actually talk about the ASP page. We are not talking about here actually what I'm selecting the code behind file. Remember that the ASP the .NET technology, it gives us one file in background. We don't create it. It comes. It is to be found automatically with the ASPX page or pages. It's not here where the binder happens. Later on we can do actually. Later on we can do our controls manually. But the startup starts. The binder starts at the control itself. If you can remember very well, the Visual Studio gives us three views: the source, the split, and the design. The split, what it gives us, one preview of what we select. So there starts the binder, because what we select we are going to modify a little bit, and I'll give you an example of how and what. Great. Okay, the technique actually and the behavior how to go behind this binder, we have to specify that we are going to bind. We are binding. Yeah, we are going to do a population of a control from a data source. So okay, this is the specification, and this happens because of this step here. We are setting up syntax inside the front end API. Actually, it's not in the C# in our context. We have to activate it later on. So actually, this is the theory. We are going to see now an example only, and this activation actually it has to be done by calling the method the data bit. So I need you to remember those steps because we're going to see the example right now implementing. So this is actually how we are going to integrate a single bind. We are going to display just one value inside an ASPX page. So inside an ASPX file, to integrate to do a single value binding, we just refer to such syntax. So wherever we are willing to display a value from a source, and it is a single value. For example, we say actually count of students, how many students we have today attending the class. So it's one number. So we do something similar to this. It's a single value. Okay, what is the price of the product? 1, 2, 3. So it's a value, a single value. We may refer to such context. So this is actually key, and this is a key. Less than percentage hash, and at the end, percentage greater than. What comes between? It's a variable name to indicate the source value of the binding. So the value to bring due to this single value binding, it is to be brought using a variable name. So the variable name it would be put here. So example here, actually, are talking about control. Sorry, yeah, we just talk about the client program. See this example here, we are having in a background, in a back and file. This is C#. This is C#. Yeah, we are having a page load event. Inside of it, here's the scope of this page load. We are declaring a variable that holds a number, initialized already. And we are going to do whatever we want here. So we are not restricted to do just one statement. No, whatever you do, you can do. You don't have anything to do. You don't have any restrictions. So after accomplishing your tasks, you just do the binding. And here we are referring to this because we are talking about an abstract number of things to be binded. In the context of we are going to bind so many single values. We are talking about a rich binding, rich controls, rich view, rich preview, rich interface. So this way, we are not going to specify which source is a question of binding. So all this refers to this scope, the page load content. The page load content, all the source properties, they are going to be binded. So the activation of the bind to all sources available here. Because of this, we say this. Otherwise, we would have specified a specific data source, specific one. But if we say this, so all the data sources that they came in this scope before this bind call would be actually activated because of this word this. Any questions here? Okay, can you identify this script here? We're talking about the ASPX interface. Okay, great. We are talking about an ASPX interface. Interface is clearly viewed here. And there is a start, here it is, of what? A label. And this is the end. The end of what? The same label. The content of the label is this phrase, string. What is this? This is a single value binding. How I knew? Because of this syntax. Less than percentage hash, and at the end, percentage greater than. In between, a variable name, which we already defined in the backend, the page load event. So, in this example here, there were 10, here it is, transactions today. So, the program renders this label, and once loads this label, he will replace, he will bind the transaction count variable here, or let's say this variable it is, with the real value, which is actually binded to, here it is, transactions today. There were 10 transactions today. Okay. And here I see that you are using request browser.browser. Actually, this is actually from the it can be because you can retrieve this thing here, this value request.browser.browser actually can retrieve it from the submission, or we can retrieve it from a specific event. Because remember, we can specify everything here. We are not stick to one property, no, but we can specify as many as we need. Depends on the product itself. So, and because of the request word, because of this request here, see the dots and text presentation here, request.browser.browser. The request here means we are going to retrieve a value already submitted. So, two phrases inside the same label. The first one, we are let's say binding to a single value, and this single value actually is already fixed to a 10. The second one, either we are submitting or we are having something specified here to represent this browser value. But in all cases, this is a very good example of a simple binding. Remember, as per the theory defined already, the simple binding is the single value binding. We represent the word simple as if we are saying single value binding. The syntax is a must. Remember, if I change anything here, it won't work. Not only to change. See, if I add a space like this, also it won't work. It's a syntax that you have to respect. No more, no less. It's not tricky. It's not tricky. We're not going to trick you just to go behind spaces or not spaces. No, just remember that the syntax has to be respected. The space cause trouble and cause the thing not to work. Because if you do insert a space here in between, so it's not the indicator of a single value binding. You are putting something else. So the system will recognize that this is not a single value binding. If there is a space here, the system will recognize that this is not a single value or a simple binding. Let's continue. The same symbol here, binding. We may actually modify a little bit to talk about multi-value binding, multi-values binding at the same location, which is the page load, and see the syntax. We are referring to the same label. We are giving it a name, and we are concatenating values. The same label, the same label, the same label. We are concatenating values, and the displays would be actually at the end of the day something similar, but from the backend code or the behind the file code. So the label would have, there were how many transactions? We actually talk about 10. Continue, transactions today. Concatenation. We are linking this to this. So there were 10 transactions today. Full stop. Then I see that you are using request of browser. These are probably to be read from the browser itself. Where it would happen? To the label name. This actually because we nominated the label in question to be label ID LBL dynamic. The same name. Same identifier. We are referring to it using the ID property text. Any questions? Nasser, any questions? Ryan, any questions?
No, thank you, Mr.
Razan, any questions?
No, Mr.
That's great. For the second type, which is the repeated value binding, it is not a context. Remember that we have something defined as which experience or which interface or which control implementation within an ASPX page. Repeated value binding, it's not stopping at the level of just redisplaying a value again and again and again. So we just display many values many times. It's not this way. If we talk about a table, so we have many values, yes, because we are having rows and columns, fields and records, and we have numerous values also to be displayed. We have to manipulate them at a time, just one shot. These are context of a repeated value action. So we are not going to fill the table box by box. We can, as we said earlier when we defined the single window, but it's not the way we do. Remember, because if I ask you now how many students we have in University of Venezuela, we have thousands. Do not expect that the program will go to display the names, just using the technology, the single value binding, name by name. You search the first one, go to the server, bring it. Second name, he goes to the server and bring it again. Third name, goes to the server and bring it again. Never to be the scenario. We refer to the repeated value. Here, actually, we have to populate a back-end control. We say, for example, we are going to use the disconnected mode, so we refer to the dataset scenario, and we populate control in the cache once at one shot. For example, you use a grid view or a list box, or let's say maybe checkbox also, checkbox list, sorry. And then after we render it to display it at the front end. So the repeated value, it still covers so many values to be displayed at the end of the day. So it's a matter of understanding to just reveal the technical aspect of this repeated value data binding. It's just to display many values, numerous values. It's a rich interface to be populated and displayed to the end user. Yet, because of the huge number of values to be brought, it's not redisplaying a value again and again, but to bring a complex value just at one shot. And I mean by complex value here, I give you an example, a table, and an enormous table, not only a simple table. So, repeated value, it's a technology via which we refer to populate a control using a source, and the source actually, it holds numerous values. The corresponding values we need, we're going to bring to you a full list or populated list. So what we're going to full here, it's a list of values, a group of values, but we have to bring from a backend source. So the same scenario applies. We have to specify the data source, the binding, then after we activate using the data bind method, no more no less. The same technique applies. Great. Okay, steps that we have to refer to actually behind of this technology, the binding, either whether it is a single, whatever the type is, a single value binding or the repeated value binding, there are steps you have to respect. Otherwise, you will fail into an error. You have to specify the data source. You have to specify the data source. And this specification starts from whether you are going to use a local data source or a remote back-end data source. Local data source like an array. Simply, you just specify an array. A remote backend source, we talk about database. So this way we specify the data source. From where we're going to fill the data. So this is the way how we start the context of the pendant. Then there will be a link from the data source to the control. The data source you specify, there will be a link, is a script that you have to specify to link this data source to the control, to the respective control, where the data be actually displayed to the end user. Then after you do the activation, which is actually the call of the data bin method. So data source to use to fill the control where it is. Data source, we have two sources mainly. Whether it is a local source, local means that at the level of the browser's cache. Or we talk about back-end solution. We talk about database. We specify the data source. We link it to a control, the source we need, whether it is a single value or it is, let's say, a hash. It's a control. It's a list of values. So we are going to specify a link between this source or that source and the specified control. After we build the activation, which is the data bin method call. Example. See here, we are specifying an array, giving it a name. This user defined this name here. And we are adding numerous values. Add. So many values to the same holder, the same array. Kiwi, pear, mango, blueberry, apricot, banana. Those are all values we are linking to, we are inserting into this array. So this is actually an array. It can be only a local declared data source. It cannot be a backend data source. So once the ASPX page has been loaded, it would be loaded to the cache also to be ready for use. How to use it? See the bin in here. Here it would happen. Wait. Let's see this example in action. Page load is the event. The array gets declared here. Everything actually that starts with two / it's a command. Then after this array that we declared here, we are populating it with values. So we are initializing. So we specify the source now. This is the step number 1. The step number 2, to do the link. Where is the source? And where is the control? This is the link that would happen. This is the control, list box 1. The data source is the fruit. What is the fruit? Is this area. This area. So we are linking the list box to the source. Here in this example, we are linking this drop-down menu to this fruit. Also, here another link to the source. So those are links. We have different controls. Control number 1, the list box. Control number 2, the drop-down list. Control 3, checkbox list. As many as we need. And we are going now to activate. So source, step number 1. Link, step number 2. And step number 3, activation of the link, which is the call of the bin, the data bin method. And again, here we are using this word, this data bin. This of what? The full scope here. Or what comes before this. before this always it counts if there are links between data sources and controls would be actually activated here. And we have the list box link to the fruit, the drop-down list link to the fruit, checkbox list link to the fruit, the radio button list link to the fruit also. All of them, here how many, therefore, those 4 here links, control sources, they are going to be activated by just one statement. This data bin. Stop. Once the page loads, everything will be displayed. See the output. Just to load the page, everything will be actually taken action. See the same values, the same values, the same values. Because we are having the same source, no? Okay, we'll see the different. Actually, because of this scenario here, we saw a local data source. Still, just one example, and definitely this context of Bindle, which is the use of a back-end source. We talk about database, so we are going to integrate the Ado.NET technology. We are going to integrate the second technique, which is to use a back-end. See here we have a select from. So we are using a database. It's another context of Bindle, but still we are going to populate the control using a data source. We'll see it next time, inshallah. Any questions here, please? If you hear your name, just say yes.